Hi, I'm Debbie Moraes, and this is Legal Matters, the program that's been designed to cover some of the critical, controversial, and current issues facing consumers and businesses today. Legal information, its practical solutions, and straight talk about a wide variety of topics. Most recently, we had covered business startups, and we gave our viewers, our listeners, an overview of various business structures for startup and evaluated some of the alternatives. We hope that you found that that was helpful. Today, we have another important topic for many of you. Certainly, everyone feels the negative effects of the economy, the slowing economy. Many have been touched by foreclosures, and of course, home foreclosures are at an all-time high. We thought it would be a good idea to present that at this time, some of the alternatives that are available, some very good news for consumers, for borrowers that is, and also, apart from the good news, there are also some scams to be worried about. Taking a look at some of the information, 16 pages that you can find at the U.S. Treasury, or you could have our lawyers help decipher this and give us a little bit of feedback on how to make it work for us. So once again, we have with us Jacqueline Grasso and David Bizarre from Odette Bizarre Cordero Grasso Law Firm in East Providence. Thank you again for coming and being with us. I think we should get started with first, what are the alternatives available short of people being foreclosed? What are the options?
Well, if it's a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac backed loan, then the government has what's called a Making Home Affordable program, and you can find that information on a website, makinghomeaffordable.com, the actual words spelled out. So if they're government-backed loans, then you have a couple options. You could go into what's called a HAMP program, which is a Home Affordable Mortgage Program, where you would be either refinancing. There would be another program where you would be, I'm sorry, let me go back. You can do a Home Affordable Refinance Program. So the government would give you some options to either reduce your interest rate for a period of time. It could be for anywhere for typically like 5 years. And then after the 5 years, your interest rate could go back to whatever the conventional rate is. That's one option. The other option is if you are not able to refinance, you could look into maybe getting a reprieve or what they call a loan forbearance. So you would take a delinquency and kind of extend it out to the loan, maybe extend it to 40 years instead of a 30 years so that it would bring your payment down. Those are some of the options.
Do any of the programs today do what they had talked about, where they were going to either change the interest rate permanently? Can you negotiate that?
Yeah, any of the lenders certainly can make that an option for you. It's important to make the distinction between the government-backed and the non-government-backed loans, because if they are government-backed loans, then the Making Home Affordable program mandates that the lenders have to give you these options. They have to comply. If it's not a government-backed loan, then they are not mandated by the Making Home Affordable program to give you these additional options. So it's purely voluntarily.
Right.
It's purely voluntary. So they can, in effect, give you either of these programs. They can offer a lifetime, a fixed rate over the lifetime of the loan. That's one of the options.
So before any of this HAMP or Home Affordable Modification Program came into play, consumers always had an option to go to their bank and say, I have a temporary problem, I have a permanent problem that I don't foresee an end to. Before you foreclose, can you help me? Are there thoughts about working out other repayment plans just with the bank, or having them, as you say, issue forbearance for some period of time before they actually have to go through and do a complete program with Fannie Mae or whatever the other alternatives are?
All banks have their own in-house workout teams or programs that, as Jackie was saying, some of these programs that are backed by the federal government programs need to be Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac type of loans. You can always go back to your own bank and negotiate. They don't want to foreclose on your property for the most part. They don't want to own real estate. They want to have loans that are performing. So that if there's a program or a suggestion that you can negotiate with them, they're usually willing to do that. And that's the first recommendation. And again, you can do that on your own or through an attorney.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And they have housing counselors available
They, the banks.
The banks have housing counselors. If you go to the makinghomeaffordable.com website, they give you an 800 phone number, and you can contact housing counselors through the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac
Right.
program.
Now, is that different or from the HUD counselors that are available?
Same thing.
group.
And of course, if you live in Rhode Island, you can go over to Rhode Island, RIMFAC, they call the acronym is. They are offering housing counselors for people in the same situation, and it's a free service. So take advantage of it.
Jackie and I were talking about it when we were preparing for the show, is how do you know if you have a Freddie Mac or a Fannie Mae backed mortgage? You can go to the website of some of the programs Jackie's already told you about, and they have links to sites that can tell you whether or not your mortgage is a federally backed loan.
At what point does a lawyer need to be involved? If someone has a short-term problem, they were laid off, but then they were hired back and are working again, maybe they skipped a payment or two, that's something that's generally advisable that the person work out with the bank directly rather than enlisting the help of a lawyer. At what point does a lawyer need to get involved? Do you need to have a lawyer when it comes to doing one of these complete refinancings?
Well, you have to have a lawyer available to close the loan.
To negotiate it in
You can have a
advance, or
lawyer.
no?
You can have a lawyer negotiate for you as well. If people can't afford that, again, that's what the housing counselors are there for. They can do the negotiation for you. Thus, the loan modification, getting a better interest rate. If somebody feels as though they don't want to deal with all the red tape and the paperwork, then it's advisable to hire an attorney.
Right.
Now, who qualifies? Who is eligible for the loan modification? I assume that it's not everyone. There is some criteria, and from what I understand, what I saw with that PDF file at USTreasury.gov,
Yeah, 17 pages almost.
16, 17 pages. Can you go through the highlights of that?
Anybody that is delinquent on their loan would qualify for the Home Affordable Refinance Mortgage. So the government is famous for having acronyms, so the HARP, Home Affordable Refinance Program. So if you're delinquent, then you would qualify in that program, and again, all the information is on that website. If you're not delinquent, then you can go over to what's called the HAMP program, which is a Home Affordable Mortgage Program, trying to get a better mortgage, modify the loan, refinance. I mean, they both almost similar, except one is only for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, and that's the Home Affordable Refinance Program, the HARP program. One is the HAMP program.
And there was a story of a neighborhood, and I think it might have been in the Chicago area or something like that, where all the people in the neighborhood decided they were going to let their loans go delinquent so they could refinance. And that's not what the program's designed for, so you've got to really look at the guidelines and follow how they work.
Now, recently, very recently, Bank of America has decided that they were going to try to help the consumer. They've been held and taken to task, those who were working with TARP, said that they really weren't doing a good job of helping those who were struggling with their mortgage. Can you help us understand a little bit about what's going on with Bank of America and maybe some of the other larger banks that are now involved in that game of, or that help?
If you look at the very end of the 17-page PDF, part of that government website I was telling you about, probably at the end it says one of the last options that a bank can do, or it's not even, it's an option, yeah. They can actually forgive principal on a temporary basis. So they would reduce the principal balance of your loan temporarily, which would ultimately probably give you a cheaper payment.
Right.
And after a period of time, provided that you've complied with making regular monthly payments in a timely manner, then it would go back up to your principal. They can actually reduce it permanently if they want. It's all up to the bank. And Bank of America is one of the first banks to offer this. But it is in the fine print in this Making Home Affordable program.
It's important to note two things that Jackie just raised. Bank of America is very important in this whole mortgage area. They took over Countrywide, which is a very large mortgage writer. Mm-hmm. And the second part, as Jackie was saying, is if some of the principal's forgiven, what goes into your monthly payment is the calculation is how much you owe on the principal and what the interest rate is. If the principal's lowered, the payment is lowered, as long as the interest rate's the same or lower. So what we're talking about generally is the banks don't want non-performing